Sandesh, offline you have mentioned that you came to Australia to study accounting, but after 6 months you changed your course and study IT. Can you please explain the reason behind by
Hello,
introducing
Shristi.
yourself?
Namaste. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me over here. Really appreciate that. Yes, back in 2018, I first came in Australia, in Sydney, to pursue my accounting degree because that was my background back home. But then, main purpose of moving from accounting to IT and then moving from Sydney to Adelaide in within 6 months is back in those days, it was purely for the migration purpose, nothing else. But then when I keep on going with the studies in IT sector and then keep on speaking with people in the IT sector, I tend to dive myself more into the industry and then get more interest and more sort of passion towards the industry. So yes, again, when I say that the initial motivation to move towards the ICT sector or the studies was purely the migration purpose, but now it's sort of passion and the career goal. And yes, sorry, I forgot to mention about my quick intro. So speaking of me, professionally, I've been working as a ERP system analyst for one of the city councils in Western Australia, the city councils of Karatha, which is in Western Australia and Outback. Prior to that as well, I have similar sort of experience in quite a different industries like state government or telecommunication, banking and financial services industries and all those sort of things. I came here in Australia back in 2000, like I said earlier, to do my accounting degree, but then changed to IT. Back home as well, I do have banking sort of experience. So that kind of experience or that kind of motivation always motivated me to do something good to pursue my corporate career in Australia. So yeah, that's about me.
By the way, did you came to Australia?
July 17, 2018. Yeah, nearly 6 years now.
Wow. After 2 years, there was a COVID pandemic. How was your situation at the time in terms of your personal life and you were a student?
Yes. So when COVID first hit Australia, I think it was end of 2019. Then I was doing my second to last semester. So everything went to online. We were not able to move out freely. Masks were mandatory. So my personal life was sort of, I will not say messed up, but it was compromised in terms of my personality or in terms of my lifestyle. And then academic life was not that good to prior COVID, because prior COVID, we used to go to college, meet the colleagues and also the professors. Any sort of confusion, anything we could straight away ask to the professors or the colleagues. Everything used to be face to face. It was way clear. But then during and post COVID, everything went online. So it was the first time I was presented to the online environment, particularly for my academic journey, which gave me sort of challenge at first is to understand what the professor was trying to explain during the classes or to practice the things, As an IT student, we had a lot of things to practice. Like we were doing C and C plus the coding languages, we were doing Python and we were doing SQL as well. So these are the things we had to practice more and more. And then since I did not have that kind of background back home, I was kind of struggling. And then to be able to ask the professor, it was not that accessible because everything was online. So academic life was a bit of a struggle. But then when I have to say about my professional career, I would say that was something good to me, because during the COVID, I was expecting that the job market will crash. The immigrant will not be able to secure the corporate job back then, because the companies would prefer the local talents. I mean, the local people to join the companies. But then situation was entirely different. There were quite a good number of job vacancies in the market compared to the talent supply. It's, I guess, mainly because the border was closed. Not many people, they were able to come into Australia. So there was a big talent gap, big talent deficit compared to the hike in job market. That's how it was a little bit easy for me to jump into the corporate career. And then I kept on switching the jobs, moving from companies to companies and switching the positions. And that's how I'm here.
Sandesh, what sort of job did you do during your student life? I think being a migrant from developing country to developed country, you have faced lots and lots of struggles. And how did you overcome the struggles and shifted from blue collar job to white collar job? I believe that you did a during your student
I
life?
think I did quite a good number of blue collar jobs when I was in my student visa. I worked in the aged care, in the kitchen side, in the hospitality department. I worked for restaurant. I worked for retail store as well. I did Uber Eats, pretty much everything. I even worked for the farm in the vineyard. So let's say pretty much everything. But then during my student life, I was pretty much sure that I want to do a corporate job. I was focused that I have to do corporate job. So because of that sort of motivation, I was not so actively like I do nowadays, but I was still doing networking with people. I was trying to gain skills and experience. I was looking into the job market, what sort of skills and experience are being expected from the candidates so that I could prepare myself for the job market. And on top of that, I was doing a couple of internships through the university. And also I was doing volunteer for one of the charity organization called the Smith Family. They are the child charity who sponsored the financially advantageous Australian kids and then sponsored them for every sort of academic adventures, let's say. So I was trying to prepare myself on every possible ways to be able to take care of my first corporate job in Australia. And lucky enough for me, I got my first job back in September 2020. I guess the main reason I got that was my preparation towards the corporate. And yes, speaking of challenges, sorry, I forgot to mention that one. Speaking of challenges, definitely being a migrant and having been to move to an entirely different country, it's not just a different country, it's a different culture, it's different language which you have not been exposed to throughout your, let's say, 25 plus years of life. So it's dealing with the entirely new culture and the new infrastructure, new language, let's say. It's not a simple language, it's the Aussie language, and we struggle to understand a lot of slangs and the Google languages, So that was a kind of challenges I was facing during my student life and also during my early career phase as well. But then I was friend with the local community. I always tend to keep myself open for broader perspective. So I was not limiting myself within our community. The main purpose was to prepare myself to be inclusive of Australian community and also to prepare myself for every sort of Australian challenges. So I guess that helped me understand the local culture or understand the local languages or every sort of thing. So yeah, that was one of the challenges. And second challenge was it's not only me, for I guess every other migrant community, especially the Nepalese community, that we had to balance our life between our school or college, our assignment, our work, and then our house, our family life, and also a little bit of saving to be able to pay back home, settle out our loan. So mixing everything together was one of the biggest challenges I've ever faced. But somehow I was working wherever I can, and then I had a really strong support from my partner who let me work freely and then who let me work on my skill side as well so that I can pursue my career, corporate journey, and then she can work hard on the background to prepare myself. So that's how I was able to overcome the challenges. But yes, it was the challenging journey.
Sandesh, you spent your teenager life at overseas Nepal, and you have been spending your younger life in Australia, in the developed country. Like, you have received lots and lots of cultural shock. You have learned a lot. Can you please explain what sort of difference have you found and what sort of drastic change in your life have you found
Okay,
in this
so
country?
speaking of the differences, obviously speaking of Nepal and speaking of Australia in terms of the infrastructure or in terms of the culture, like I was mentioning earlier, or in terms of the way of people thinking, it's totally different. And also in terms of the corporate culture as well, it's totally different. So first and foremost, we all know that we Nepalese people, we live in a communal social environment, meaning that we love to interact with each other. I mean, we love to sit together. We love to do everything together. We also don't mind the joint family. But here in Australia, it's pretty much the individualistic society, individualistic community where people first they think of themselves, then the family, and then the community or the country. Versus back home, it's first the family, and then you will find yourself within the family, just not within yourself. That's one of the biggest challenges. And other is way of thinking, obviously, because we were from the developing economy. We didn't have exposure to a lot of things versus people here in Australia or the Australian community has pretty much access to everything. You talk of infrastructure, you talk of IT, you talk of education, you talk of everything. They have the access to all those sort of things that they can get from their early childhood, which we didn't have. Speaking of me, if you ask me, I guess I saw train first time when I came in Sydney. So that's, you can say, that's one of the differences. The way we manage infrastructure back home versus the way we manage the infrastructure here. And based on the management of infrastructure or everything back home, the way you prepare yourself for the society back home and the way you prepare yourself for society here is totally different. But then when you are here, you had to make yourself inclusive of this particular environment. So you tend to change yourself. You tend to participate in local environment, or you tend to practice everything that the local community does. That's how you get inclusive. And then, yeah, speaking of what changes I get in my lifestyle is, I guess the way I'm thinking now is totally different than the way I used to think back home. And then my career motive as well is totally different compared to back home. Also, the way I behave, also my lifestyle as well is totally different compared to back home. So these are the pretty much changes back home and here.
Sandesh, like I want to share my story too. I was also grown up in Nepal when I was a teenager, and at the age of 18, I wanted to leave home and be independent. You know, that was my dream, to be independent and sitting far from parents and doing a job and doing everything on my own. But I could not, and I was married at the age of 22, and I came to Australia at the age of 22 and a half, and I had a baby at the age of 24 in Australia. You know, and I already shared my dream. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to do the job, business, and do everything on my. I didn't want it to be dependent with any of the person. But when I had a baby, there was a COVID pandemic when I gave birth to a baby, and I was alone inside the room and taking care of my baby. I could not go outside. Even the going to shopping was a difficult thing for me. And at that time, I realized that I don't want independence. Now my child is 5 years old, and me and my husband is looking after the child. And I really want some support. You know, like I really want some support from my family or relatives.
Yeah.
But I'm here only with my husband, and it's completely difficult. Even my child goes to school. I have also worked in child here, and it's completely different culture here. And even my child, she goes to school and she is just instructed what to do. She's not allowed to feed. The teacher don't support her to dress up. She's just 5. And even at home, when I try to feed her or try to dress up to her, she's like, I can do it myself. Just instruct me. I can do opposite whatever the dress I can, but I will try myself. She's completely trying to be independent at the age of 5. And I feel it's a sort of detachment, and I want to be more attached, you know,
Yeah.
based on our culture. But she's already towards the Western culture. What's your view towards its attachment,
Yeah,
detachment, and the different
I would like to add
cultures?
one another thing before answering this one. This is a really good reflection of what you have just mentioned now. So, speaking of the cultural differences, you asked me earlier. One of the biggest difference I forgot to mention, but I got here was back home we had been pampered by our parents up until we are, let's say, teenagers. I'm pretty much sure that you were not allowed to go to the kitchen up until you were grown up, right? And
Yeah.
if you wanted to do a part-time job when you were studying, that was a big no from your parents. None of our parents, they wanted us to do
Yeah.
any job or us to get distracted from study. Our parents' main motivation towards us was
Yeah.
to, and they are happy to do whatever they can for us to grow academically. And at some point of time, career-wise. I remember I completed my bachelor's back home and came here to do my master's, but up until I was doing bachelor's, my parents, they were there on my back to support me for every event of my life. But when he came here, I think for the first time, when I went to KFC or Mac, one of the fast food chains, I saw kids of 10, 12, 14, I don't know the exact age, but at least they were working, they were making money. And when I reflect that today, I think that's one of the good things that the Western community is doing. Because when someone is used to making money, or when someone is used to handling money from, let's say, 12 or 13 or 14, by the age of 20, they are well confident of managing their own finances. Versus back home, we didn't even know where the money came from, and we didn't know how the accounting was being handled by our parents up until, let's say, we are 25, 26, 28 or whatever. Up until you finish your master's and up until you do your
Yeah.
first good job. We don't know how the house is running. We don't know where the money is coming from and all those sort of things. But here, the kids, they know everything. That's one of the biggest thing,
Yeah.
or one of the independencies, I guess, our community is failing to hand over to our kids. And I like that part in Australian society. For example, if you think of a case back home where a kid unfortunately has to lose their parents for some reason, let's say in his 15s or 20s, he's simply an orphan. He don't know what to do. He don't know how he's going to live his life moving forward. But
Yeah.
I mean, totally no one has to deal with such sort of thing. But if you're speaking of similar sort of situation in Australia where someone has to leave their parents for some reason in their 15th or 20s or whatever is, they can manage to live by their own self because they are taught to be independent from day one of their school. Like you gave an example of your daughter, that's one of the strongest thing that grown-up child has to learn. And I really like this particular thing about the Western society.
Yes, on this one thing that surprises me is my own example, like I always dreamed to work part-time, continuing my study, but my parents didn't allow. And it was my dream while I was a teenage. And I still like, if I have to suggest my teenage life, like back past life, I would have done a job, I had to struggle. Yeah, I should have convinced my parents and did a job. That's my suggestion for my teenage life, but I can't go back. Now, the thing that surprises me is I was not allowed to do anything, at the age of 18, 19, 20. And after finishing my bachelor, I was directly married. I loved someone and I got married, and I didn't have any job experience. I didn't have any life experience. After my marriage, I think it belongs to lots of Nepalese girls who are married at their younger life. I don't have any experience, but the people or
Respect a
the
lot.
community, society, like everyone expecting me to have a, yeah, like have a good having a maturity, like tackle everything. How can I tackle each and everything at a sudden change? I don't have any experience, and it surprises me if I have to give solution to those younger or teenage people who are studying at Nepal or any country. I highly recommend them to do some job, get some experience before you just settle, like
Exactly.
that's
Do
my highest
everything.
suggestion
I
to
mean,
those people.
everything. Do
Yeah.
something that gives you money and do something that gives you happiness. And also do anything that you can support your parents, let's say in the kitchen or in the backyard or anything you can do that so that you can learn the life skills and moving forward, you can be independent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do anything you can do to support yourself and the parent.
Yeah. So on this offline, we have discussed that you also worked for US company by residing in Australia. How did you prepare that mindset
Okay,
to think and
so
work
I think I
globally?
have to tell a bit of background before jumping into the scenario. I mean, before jumping into the answer, the thing was, I was working with the state government in South Australia in the finance department as a business analyst in one of the project, but then project did not last long for quite different reasons. That's usually happens with the government sector. And I was in my earlier business analyst career phase. So, I mean, I could not secure a long-term contract with them. So I was transitionally unemployed in between. So it was a time when I was looking for job, but then wasn't getting a job. And it was getting harder and harder only because back in those days, Australian government, they decided to open the international border, right? You have to understand this thing. They decided to open the international border. And I guess that was the historical time in Australia where most number of people came into Australia. The net migration of Australia went to 750,000 or whatever they say in the news, which means I'm going to tell you how that impacted me personally, which means a lot of people from our neighboring country or a lot of people from the European society or the American society, they flew into Australia. That gave me a tough challenge because whoever they come to Australia, they were not just the student who came to Australia, they were the professionals who had 10 or 20 years of experience on similar sort of field back in their countries. And then when they come in here, they could seriously give me a tough condition. For me, I was a early career holder, and then they were in their mature career phase, and I was not able to secure a job. And like they say, necessity is a mother of invention. I was in a need of job, and I didn't want to settle anything that I can get easily. I wanted to pursue my career as a business analyst any cost. Like I said, I keep working on my skills every now and then, and I keep networking with people every now and then. But in that time, when I had a serious need of job, someone in my network suggested me to look into a few freelancing networks, freelancing platform. Freelancing means that you can do anything at your own time. When you speak about a traditional 9 to 5 office job, is that you have to go to 9 and you have to get off at 5. You have to work in between that time. But when you talk about freelancing, you can do that thing at any time. They give you a time frame. For example, they give you a piece of project that you have to finish in, let's say, 3 months. Then you can do, if you choose to do 24 hours a day, you can do 24 hours a day. That's the freelancing. And we have quite a good number of popular freelancing platforms like Fiverr, freelance.com, or Upwork. I chose to go with Fiverr, and that's where I got my first freelancing gig from one of the company. They were based in US. That's how I started working for them. And then I guess I need to add one more thing. So when you need something desperately, you have to broaden your resources, you have to broaden your availability, you have to broaden your thinking and everything. You do not want to constrain yourself within a limited resources or limited circumstance. Just broaden yourself and then think behind your comfort zone. That's how you can start achieving something you wish to.
So on this, can you please provide simple tips for those people who wants to land their career in the course they study, but they are so much struggling and
I
confused?
think it's the common problem, not only for few peoples, but not only for our community, for I guess everyone who is migrating from our sort of country to Australia. It's because we didn't have that sort of exposure back home. And then we are coming here to this country. And if I speak about the corporate culture in Australia, it is highly, highly competitive. I'm going to give you one good example. Let's say if you have worked in banking environment back home, no matter what particular role you are working for, let's say you were working in the credit side, or you were working on, let's say, operation side, you were handling cash, or you were looking for compliance, or whatever thing you did back home. If you were working on one industry, you can easily get a job in another industry if the job is available, obviously. But here in Australia, if you have worked in, let's say, housing loan department for X many years, and then you want to move to compliance department, it's not that easy. You have to prove them that you are worth of compliance. You have all those sort of skills and experience, or you have all those sort of transferable skills that you can bring into table that can benefit the department. Your experience within the banking industry will not be sufficient for you to move to a niche compliance department. So the biggest takeaway for me was to build a niche experience, build a competitive experience. You have to be competent in Australia, right? So now, if anyone who had just finished their study, or who is in the way to finish their study and are dreaming of journey or corporate career, my first suggestion would be to start networking with people in the industry. Go to any kind of networking event that the industry hosts. For example, let's say I've been working as a business analyst for a long time. That was my dream when I was pursuing my study. So the Australian community who work towards the business analysis environment is IIBA, International Institute for Business Analysis. And every cities have their own chambers, own chapters, and also PMI, or Project Management Institute, or Project Management Society in each of the society. And also there are quite a different platform user group. For example, MS365 user group. That means whoever in Australia uses, or whoever in, let's say, Adelaide uses MS365, they have the user group. They keep on meeting each other every now and then, let's say at least a month or so. So try to find out those sort of group and try to engage with those people. I can understand that in first 5 meetings or so, you will find yourself, let's say, down. You will find yourself incompetent or inconfident. But then if you break that barrier, if you break the icebreaker, if you break that comfort zone and keep continuing going those networking events, keep on meeting with people, keep on asking questions, and keep on sharing them about yourself, you will get more confidence. You will get to know about the market. You will get to know about the market insight. You will get to know how to apply for those particular things. You will even get to know about the skills and experience that you are lacking and you need to work on. In my example, like I said, I keep meeting people. I keep networking with people. So in one of the events, one of the people I met with, he advised me to work on few different areas like Agile. That's one of the popular methodology when you talk about IT contracting world. Or let's say one of the person, he asked me to get more experience on Power BI. That's one of the tool in data analysis environment. So someone they dared or someone they thought of giving me a valuable advice, and I went back home. I started working on that thing, and then that's how I think I get this job. So keep on networking with people, keep on gaining any sort of work related experience. In my case, I wanted to land a corporate job. So at first, when I wanted to land a corporate job, I didn't have any idea that I want to do business analyst job. I just wanted any sort of corporate job. But when I kept on moving, I wanted to do BA job. And that's how I started working my skills. But at first, when I was working as a student, like I said, I actively network with people. I actively identified my skill gaps and work on my skills. And also I did a couple of internship through my university that gave me more confidence about Australian work culture, right? And then more confidence about quite a good number of platforms that are used in Australian companies. I also worked voluntarily for one of the child charity organization in Australia that gave me more confidence, like I said, the Australian work environment or the platforms and all those sort of things. That gave me quite good examples to be able to speak in the interviews. And then also the people I work during the internship or during the workshop, during the volunteership, they give me good feedback or they give me good advice on how to look for job, how to apply for job, how to prepare yourself for internship and all those sort of things. And that's how I prepared myself. And also there are quite a good number of resources in the internet or in the society that you can benefit from. For example, you can benefit from LinkedIn online learning. For the first month, I get that's free. Also, you can do online learning from other platforms like Coursera or there are quite a good number of learning platforms. Also, there are free career coaches, which I'm engaged with at the moment. And there is an organization in Sydney called the Project Placed, which is one of the amazing organization I have ever engaged with. They tend to support the unemployed or unemployed Australian who want to come back to the Australian workforce. In my case as well, while I was struggling to get the job, I was in touch with them. And then they have a large pool of consultants who are more than happy to support you in every phase of career journey, right? So they were supporting me with my CV and cover letter. They were supporting me on my LinkedIn optimization thing. They were supporting me on interview prep, those sort of thing. And there are also paid, you can choose to pay for the career coaching programs as well. There are good number of really good career consultants who are more than happy. I mean, obviously some sort of financial transaction happens, but more than happy to help you with the job searching strategies or your CV and cover letter, those sort of things. When you want to achieve something good, my advice is to not hesitate to invest some money in towards yourself. So invest towards your personal development, your career development. So that are the kind of advices I can offer to anyone who wish to join the Australian corporate workforce. Also, minimize your time in any other social media and maximize your time in career related social media like LinkedIn or Meetup, where you can connect with another professional in your chosen industry. That's how you can start gaining confidence about the industry, start get more industry insight, those sort of things. So yes, work on your skills, work on internship and workshop, or work on volunteer, whatever you can get, right? Work on skill development, work on online learning and resources, actively network with people on the industry you choose to work for, utilize all of the freely available resources like I've already mentioned. And so do whatever it needs you to land your first job. So just focus on your career and then start building your network and skills, confidence. That's it. And anyone in my environment in business analysis or ICT environment as a whole who wish to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me through LinkedIn. If you can publish my LinkedIn profile in this video, I'm more than happy to get connected and give whatever advice I can give to support those people who want to land corporate job in Australia. And also, I will direct those people to any other groups that I know that they can help them groom in, corporate culture.
Wow, Sandesh, thanks for sharing the information and the support you are willing to give to those people who are really struggling and confused to land their career in a corporate job. Thanks for attending the podcast,
Thank you,
Sandesh.
Shristi, for
So much.
inviting me and also giving me opportunity to speak more about myself and more about the career sort of things. I really appreciate that, and keep on doing the good thing you are doing. Thank you.